Dun da da, dun da da. Rhonda, hello. Oh, Rhonda. How are you feeling? Rhonda says she's having COVID, blah. You know, if you don't have flu A, you've got that new strand of COVID. I can't believe how many people are catching that thing. It's like everywhere. We've had people who have not caught any of the other versions, and at my paying gig, they're dropping like flies right now. I'm thinking, oh, please don't happen to me. I have a business trip next week. I can't be getting sick. I've been so good so far. Feels like the flu. Oh, Rhonda, yeah, that's not fun. That's not fun. Hopefully they're going to give you some of that secret medicine that they have. Oh, I can't remember the name of it, but my in-laws got some, and like within 24 hours they felt so much better. They don't have that secret medicine for the flu for some reason, so in a way, I guess, COVID's not so bad. I know. Hi, Jean. And Bev's on. Hi, Bev. Oh, it's really, Rhonda, you just get better. That's all I can say. We had some sad news in our quilting, little quilting circle here, too. I know I've mentioned Sue Lewis before because I've showed off a couple of her quilts, including, her beautiful macaw quilt. And she's the one that won some blue ribbons, putting her quilts into fairs, local fairs around here. So, yeah, dropped your name on the show many, many times. Well, she posted some not so fun news that she's been diagnosed with I'm not going to even try to say it, but a not so fun form of cancer. So keep her in your thoughts and prayers. She's busy trying to starve that thing off right now and think about her family. She's got some young children as well, so we don't like having that happen in our community. It does. So make sure you thank your blessings, okay, guys? Kaya says her kids have been healthy for 1 week. You know what? It has been crazy. It has just been crazy around. Absolutely. Thank you, Jean. Yes. Was sad news to get. We love seeing her around, but she's got a big smile and a big heart. So I'm thinking this one's if anybody's gonna beat it, it's gonna be Sue. She's a very active person. But anyway, well, you're in my thoughts and prayers, Sue. Hope to see you in the shop soon. Let's move on. Thank you, Rhonda. Absolutely. Kaya, Ann, nice to see you. John's in the house as well. Jean, hi. Thank you, everybody. Everybody. See, that's what little circle of love right here on an old Shenanigans. And boy, it's a tough show today because Brent's not here. He's out lollygagging in the desert somewhere. I don't even know what he's doing. But he appears to be having a very grand time. Eddie, you should have pulled up some of his beautiful photos. Nobody will come in this shop again if they see what he thinks is fun. Not true. I bet some of you are jealous. I bet some of you want to be there. Thank you, Bev. Oh, Rhonda, your Prairie Meadow kit. Congratulations for joining the bandwagon. I think it got sent out already, right, Eddie? Should be on its way. I thought it got sent out last week. You haven't got it yet, Rhonda?
Well, Brent doesn't do the mail, so. And
Oh.
on vacation.
Oh,
So.
I just froze up. Poor Bev. But anyway, I thought, yeah, okay. Well, she better get. We're happy to have you on board, too. And that's what we're going to be talking today when we get to there. But Eddie's behind the camera today. But I'm thinking, do you have some shop news for us, Ed?
I don't think there's anything. Oh, wait, 1 second. We did get a.
Yeah, no, he's not in California, Gene. I think he's somewhere in the, he's in a desert somewhere. I don't know. Gene says, hi, Eddie. Oh, we got some layer cakes. I love it when we get new stuff in. If you haven't been in recently, you should come in because they've been making improvements in the store all the time. And I tell you, it really looks nice in here. Nicer and nicer every day. And now that Brent's not here, I think we can make even more improvements now. This is from Free Spirit, a cave facet. I think we talked about this coming in. So this is cool because I don't know if you've ever fallen in love with any of his things or done any of his quilts. There's some really cool patterns online you could get for large prints. Basically, they're large and they're very colorful. Oh, there's polka dots in here. You know, I'm a softie for polka dots. Who isn't, right? Where did I just go? I wanted to show those polka dots. Well, I thought I saw polka dots, people. Maybe not. Yes, I did see polka dots. Poor Eddie. He's like, Becky, get in sync with me. I know. So there's reverse. No, those are the same. Whoo! 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 That's it. That's the only polka dot. Anyway, these are in. They're beautiful. They're great for using in big blocks, or really cutting the heck out of them and mixing them up and putting them all together every which way makes a really cool quilt as well. So those are in. We got these. Must be warm where it is. It is. It is. Hi, Janice. Okay, so I'm gonna stash that aside. All right. Well, today I promised you last week that I would demo actually attaching these together. And I don't have Brent here to interrupt me or to screw up the sewing, so it's all on me if it doesn't go well. I can't blame him today, which is making me very nervous. I kind of like him here just so I can blame him. Remember last week I talked about how we were leaving them oversized, then we were trimming them down. I would like to take it from that point of them being oversized. Everyone agree that that's cool? Now think about it. I'm demonstrating it with the Prairie quilt because that's what we happen to be working on. But this concept that I'm going to show you leans itself to so many other quilts. There are countless ways of doing quilt as you go. This is but one of them. And it is not one I invented. It is one that I'm sure you can find out there, and I've kind of grabbed bits and pieces from different techniques and thrown them all together and come up with what I call the cover strip sashing strip method. But again, and we'll talk about other ways as the shows go on, but I wanted to show how I did this one. First of all, I told you I wanted mine scrappy on the front and the back. It's a very scrappy looking quilt. So you will see I used fat quarters for each one of my 12 big applique jobbers. You don't have to. You can use all the same one if you want to. This is just what I have chosen to do. I also chose to use the sashing that she calls for on the front for my, what I call sashing / cover strip on the back. Again, you do whatever makes you happy. Some people don't want this on the back at all. That's a different technique. That's not what I'm demoing today. What I'm demoing today is exactly how I did what I did and I'm going to continue to do. Any questions? Ed, you're going to let me know if there are.
All right.
Okay. So first things first, we're going down the Quilting 101 lane, people. I'm going to remind you how important it is to prep your material, even for sashing, even for when you're cutting out all those other squares, okay? I say this all the time, prep your fabric, and some people still are not prepping their fabric. I'm going to convince you someday, somehow, that will make your life easier in the short run when you're quilting. First, I want to remind you that when you buy your fabric off the bolt, a lot of people will say, oh, I'm going to take it right here. I'm sorry, Ed. I'm going to use this as my straight edge. I'm going to line it up. I'm going to get a straight edge, and let's start cutting my strips. And I'm here to remind you, no, 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 no. Very rarely is this folded edge the straight of grain on your fabric. When they go on the bolt, they're not always going on the bolt square. So you'll get it home and you'll go, why can't I get this just right? This goes back many moons when I said to you, the first thing you're going to do is iron that fold out. Y'all remember that show? You're going to open up your fabric. You're going to spray it. You're going to dry it on your line. Remember all that? And then you're going to press it flat. And then what you're going to do to make sure you get straight strips. Now, yeah, sometimes sashing, it isn't that big a deal. But I'm telling you, the straighter you get everything, the easier it is to sew it together. What you're then going to do is you're going to take it and pretend I don't have that folder here anymore. I'm going to take my fabric and I'm going to hold it up. Should have ironed it for you. And I'm going to get it. I'm going to hang it arm's length out. And I'm going to get it so it doesn't have a wiggle in it. Now what I mean by that is if it looks like this, that's not straight. Is it showing? Yes. That's not straight. See that wiggle? That's not straight. I'm going to finagle it between my fingers until I get rid of that wiggle and it's lying nice and flat. See that? Now watch what happens to my fold, people. This is now straight fabric. See if I can demo. Watch it behave, because I've done this one before. When I lay it down and I bring my hand down, yeah, this one's not bad. I've done it before. But you can see how, I don't know if you can see, the fold is going, it's not on the fold over here, but it is on the fold over here. Do you see that? That fold is not, it's a liar. It's a liar. That is not on the straight of my grain. So if you really want straight strips for cutting your rectangles, or cutting your squares, cutting your sashing pieces, cutting your binding pieces, take this crease out first. Do that little finagling thing I just did. Make sure your fabric's right, laying nice and flat. Put it down. Now you can put your crease in if you want. You put your crease in. Don't take their crease. It's going to be wrong. I've never seen it absolutely right. Never. So that's the first thing I do, because I want my sashing strips to be nice and straight. I don't want them to go, wonky. Prepped my fabric, cut my strips. Now, what? Yes? Do you spray with water or best press? Oh, I use best press or, let me see if I brought it. No, I didn't. Or the
Niagara.
Viagra. I use best press, works fine. The Niagara works good. You don't have to get into like any heavy starches. But yes, Bev, I do that and I put it on my drying rack. Okay, so now what I've done is I've prepped some of my samples because I wanted to make sure I really got through it today. But what I wanted to tell you is I then cut my strips, in my case 2 inches wide, for this project. Why? And I'm telling you the whys because I'm hoping you can then take this technique and use it with another quilt down the line, okay? Because this is tried, true, and I love it. I know this pattern called for 1-inch sashing strips. I know when I quilt as a go, I like to have 1/2-inch seam allowances between my blocks. So, and I want this to be nice and flat. So if I'm going to have a 1/2-inch seam allowance on my blocks, I want a 1/2-inch seam allowance on my strip too. So now I'm going to say I'm not cutting this at 1.5 inches. I'm taking my 1-inch strip, I'm adding a 1/2 inch for this side, I'm adding a 1/2 inch for that side. Guess what my strips are? 2 inches wide. Exact same thing from the back, 2 inches wide. Throughout this quilt, wherever I do these sashings, instead of cutting them at what they tell you, 1.5, I'm cutting them at 2. Because my brain can't handle 2 measurements, just 1. So I'm cutting nice 2-inch strips. I've prepped my fabric before I cut it, guys, so see how nice and straight these strips are? They're not wonky at all. Let me turn it over here. I'm going to undo this for a minute just so I can show you how I did that. Nice 2-inch strips. Now I go 2-inch, 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 create as many as you need. Then when I go to slice them, in all honesty, I leave a little extra above and a little extra below. Some people do not. They'll make it exact. Because of the quilting, I like to have a little leeway in lining those things up. So now I use it this way, okay? Now, I see Jean says, do you save for embroidery pressing? Not necessarily, Jean. Jean's asking when I do the Terrell. I use the Terrell Magic when I need it to be really, really, really stiff. A good example is like on the Snow Country panels. It's a heavy embroidery, and I want to minimize as much interfacing, not stabilization as I can. So in that case, I'm going to add more starch to my fabric to make it more paper-like. Do not do that on these at all. Just use best press on these because it's light applique. So it depends on how heavy that embroidery is. It's not a rocket science on that one, unfortunately, but I always use something. In fact, before I even cut this down, these blocks, after I trimmed the extra batting away, which by the way, the batting I trimmed away, it was equal. Excuse me, I have one here to show you, so let's show you. This block here, when I went to go store it, I just trimmed it to the fabric. Didn't square it up or anything, just went trim, trim, trim. It's approximately 18 inches square because that's what we were working with the whole on. I cut the extra batting off that we used to put it in the hoop, put it aside because we can use that later in the project. So it's not throwaway. Now I have this block, but it's not the right size. Okay, it was just stored that way till I got ready. So what size do I need to make this block? I told you I was doing these at 2 inches. If I look up the pattern on this one, she tells me the finished size is 16 inches, right? Let me show you what I do so that my brain doesn't have to calculate. I go, I have to make this have a 16-inch finished block. I know that. I get out, whoops, sorry, I'm tripping on cords today. I get out my big square ruler. And by the way, if you don't have one of these big square rulers, they are a good investment. Now, you don't necessarily have to have one this big, and you don't have to have one, but I'm going to show you why I really like it. I have this block, and I know it needs to be 16 inches square finished. I look at my 8-inch on here. I'm out of camera, aren't I? This way, Becky. I look at my 8-inch on here, and I line it up with my seam on my block. Because with this quilt, I had a middle vertical seam. I also have a middle horizontal seam. So the next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take my number 8, because 16 divided by 2 is 8. That's all I got to know. And I'm going to set that up on my horizontal seam on both sides. So I'm looking at 8 inches here. I'm looking at 8 inches here. I'm looking at, well, it's not 8 because I don't have it 8 here. But I'm looking at the middle seam and I'm seeing it's lining right up. If it's not lining right up right now, do a little tugging, do a little tweaking. This is critical. Do not cut at this. Do not cut. Get out your marking pencil of choice. Mine is Friction. I know some people say, I love them. I am then going to mark 16 inches. Remember, 16 inches, because that's my finished size, right? We're going to do it on that other block. I just wanted to show you that I'm turning around. I'm going to do the same thing. Let's do it live, bubbles. Here I think I have so much room and then I don't. Move it over here. Okay, here we go. This is one that is not squared off. It's probably around 18 inches, okay? That's what most of them are when we take them out. The first thing I do, and I didn't mention this, is I spray this block front and back with Best Press or Niagara. I think I use Niagara on this because that's cheaper, and when I can use the cheaper product, I do. I sprayed that front and back, and I pressed it nice and flat. Yes, the quilted block should get pressed before we square it up. Things shift when you're quilting. So once I do that, again, it's not showing too much, but I have a vertical center seam on this block, and I have a horizontal center seam on this block. I know that it's going to be 16 inches finished. So I'm using my number 8 at the top, and I'm using my number 8 at the bottom, on the side. I'm lining those up. This is going to be live. Whew. And I'm looking and I'm making sure my seam allowance looks good over here, and it doesn't. So guess what I'm doing? Yeah, now I like it. Now I'm looking over here and I'm like, oh my gosh, that one's off more than I like. I mean, really off. So here's when I do, that one was off more than anything, so I'm going to do a little pivot on him first. Then I'm going to look, okay, yeah, we've done that. I really do. I fiddle and diddle like this. Okay, that looks pretty good. I'm not cutting. I'm marking. Hopefully. Now, some of you will find this is not necessary. You're smart, your brains work well enough that you don't have to do this. But I'll tell you what, I have so many hours in one of these blocks, the last thing I'm going to do is cut it wrong. I'd rather draw it wrong and iron it off than to cut it wrong. So that's one corner, right? See how easy this is to square up? Now I'm doing my 8. And there's all sorts of fancy tools for and I'm looking at this guy up here. Now, some of you would say, well, Becky, why don't you just look at the line you just drew? I'm not ignoring it, but again, because there's some play, because it's been quilted, I'm looking here, and then I'm assessing. I can see, I don't know if you guys can see it, but I can see this bottom line is a little bit off, if you will, once this line is on. But this line isn't on. See, so this is where you go fiddle and diddle. And I'm like, okay, let's bring that up. Bring that up. That looks good. Notice I'm using my elbows too when I'm fiddling and diddling. Oh, wow, that looks pretty darn good. See, I was really off. Now I'm not. See? Put your weight into it. Again, I'm not cutting. I'm drawing. Sound effects, because Brent's not here. Okay. What I've just done is drawn what my finished size will look like. For me, this is important because I can visualize now where my seam is going to be. And what did I tell you I wanted for a seam allowance?
1/2 inch.
Yay, Eddie's listening. Yay, Eddie. 1/2 inch seam allowing. Kaya, I am using a Friction pen, my favorite. Some people don't like them, but I do. And I like it because it's this particular one by Pilot is retractable. If I make a mistake marking, I'm sticking an iron on it and it's going away. Now keep in mind, for those of you who fret about using that pen, this is a seam allowance I just marked off. Okay, it's not me marking the center of the quilt. Although I use them for that too. I've been very fortunate that I haven't had, when it bites me, you'll hear, I'm sure. Now, this is my finished block. So now I've got my other beautiful ruler, and I'm lining my 1/2 inch part of that ruler right here with the mark I just made, guys. But I'm not ignoring the top and bottoms either. I'm making sure that I'm still using everything to keep myself as straight as possible. This is now my cutting line. Yep, now I'm going to cut. Ah! Hopefully I have a sharp blade. So I am cutting through the top layer, I'm cutting through the batting layer, and I'm cutting through the backing. All of them at once, okay? Using 1/2 inch. Now, just a reminder on cutting, don't hold your hand here and go like that. You can, but odds are that ruler's going to move. I don't care what ruler you have, how good the slip thingies are or not. Remember the spider walk we covered way back when? I'm spider walking. See my finger is holding that ruler in place. There's too many hours in this thing. I'm not going to go whoosh and then cross my fingers that I got it right. There it is. It's magic. We're going to go around and we're going to continue this so I can show you how to put them together. This is a real live demo here. Everybody with me so far? Colored markers. Yes, yes. They do come in colors, actually. I think Kaya says she has colored markers. I think Clover now makes a complete set with all different colors. And I've used those, and I've liked those as well. But they don't retract. They have those little covers on them. And I'm always losing the cover. That's why I like the clickable Pilot ones. The other thing I took out today and I went about was a erasable pen that I swear I just bought. That was fine point. I bought it for that other nasty hobby I have called cross stitching, which we'll talk about that. I opened up the cover. I swear I just opened the cover yesterday. Today it's dried. So did I not put the cover on right? Is it a faulty pen? Can't be dealing with covers. I'm not good at it. Again, whoopsie, you almost got to call me out if I'm not spider walking right. I don't want to screw this up. I don't want to make another one of these. So I'm just going around and I'm lining up with that line we drew. Remember, guys? This gives me the visual. Now, what you can start to see now is a beautiful squared off, and guess what its squared off size is? 16, half, 17. But am I going to remember 17? No, I'm not. I'm going to remember finished size of my pattern because I'm trying to teach you something you can use for any pattern. Finished size is 16 inch. I like 1/2 inch seam allowances using this technique. Drew by 16 inches, added a 1/2 inch seam allowance. Isn't that easy? Now what? We got our 2-inch strips. We got them all nicely marked. Now the magic, which isn't that magical. I take my 2 strips. And then you ask, why did you mark this one? Again, because visually, I want you guys to see what I'm up to. So I actually marked the 1/2 inch seam allowance on the back side of this where we're going to sew it. Now, lucky me, with the Luminaire, I have all sorts of laser guides that can make that 1/2 inch guide for me. But I want you at home to make sure you see it and can use any sewing machine. I do recommend a walking foot for this because you are going through 1, 2, 3, 5 layers. Is it a necessity? No, but it sure does make it tight nicer. What I'm doing now is I'm putting the this is the back strip, right sides together with the back of my fabric. Okay, we'll put it together. Front strip, right sides together with the front of my fabric. So now what I have is wrong side up, right side up, wrong side down, down, right side up. That's my special sandwich. Does that all make sense with you guys? Yeah, Jean, I know. The air erasables, I don't know. And I've had problems with some of the water solubles these days too, so I don't know. I've had to soak something for like a week, I think, to get stuff out. Now, you're going to see me using clips to clip these little guys together. But you all know I'm a lover of glue, and you're going to see me use glue later. But I would not use pins here because of the thickness. The pins are just going to distort stuff if you stick a pin in there. So you can either use nothing if you feel that confident. I never do. Or I love these little wonder clips. I use these for so many things. Out of the sewing room as well. They just come in handy. So I'm not, not getting too fancy, but I'm clipping it together. All right? You see that? So far, so good, right, gang? Whoops, I'm tripping over stuff. Now, we're ready to put these puppies on. So over here on my bobbin, I have the same thread I'm going to use for quilting. Let's get that up so I can show you what that looks like. Which I matched to the tan of my sashing. I don't know if you can see it, but I did some decorative stitching too. So I chose to use that tan color. I have it in my bobbin, and I have it in my top thread as well. Are we okay, Ed?
Yeah.
I'm also taking this regular foot off. Again, if you don't have a walking foot, you can still do this technique, but you will end up fighting with some pleating, which why do it if you don't have to? And this is a big fancy walking foot because I'm on a Luminaire. But truthfully, the little mechanical ones will work too. Why a walking foot? Educate you on the walk. And I would use glue. Yeah, you definitely can use glue, Bev. And I'm going to show you on the second step, I definitely use glue. First step, again, there's wiggle room. Okay, I should have put this on before because now I can't even see what I'm doing, Ed. Eddie was nice enough to set up the machine, but I didn't say, oh, and by the way, I want a walking foot on there too. Let's get that puppy in there. Okay. He's plugged in, ready to go. Okay, good. Now, some of you are lucky enough to have a walking foot. Oh my, who's doing Disney? You guys are just crazy in here. You can buy several different feet that go on the walking foot. These are the two that come, whoops, there. These are the two that come with the luminaire. Either one of these is going to work for this project. I'm going to choose this one, which I have no idea what letter it is, but it's got the little red mark. Ah! I'm getting it, little red marks on it, and it's got a nice little V to help me line up my stitching for this process and when I go and do the decorative stitching. So I don't have to change feet again. I am terrible at putting this foot on, Ed. Oh my goodness gracious. Something tells me I should have put it on before I stuck the foot in. Oh, I love struggling with mechanical things. Why can't I get that foot on?
Do you need help?
I'm stuck. I don't know how to get my foot on. I don't know what I'm doing wrong. Ed's gonna come help me. He's gonna save me. He's gonna get my foot on for me. What did you do?
Well,
So I don't feel so stupid.
I lowered it and lined it up
Oh.
while I was lowering it.
What? Yeah, that helps. But now I need it on.
Yay! He got it.
Got what?
He fixed you.
He did fix me. There was nothing wrong with me.
Well, I was trying to do a button and I couldn't, so I was just like, yay.
Oh, I gotta get out of embroidery mode. There we go. Oh, I see.
I was your sound clip.
Thank you. Thank you. But now I can't use any keys though. What did you lower, Ed?
What? The presser foot.
No, it's yelling at me. It won't let through my needle.
Are you in walk mode?
There it goes. I wasn't in sewing mode. Okay, now I'm in sewing mode. Woohoo! Now I'm not going to demonstrate all the laser features today because I've done that before. But maybe we'll after we get these attached. We'll see. I drew a line so you can see where I'm going to sew. I'm going to sew through all of these layers, guys. All of these layers. Oh, I need to heat up my iron too. My goodness, always something. Oh, and the other thing, okay, stop using the mechanical thing. That's what I'm doing wrong. The other thing I do is I increase my stitch length to 3 when I go to do the top stitching. I also want to increase it when I'm doing the quilting. I'm going through a severe amount of layers here. If I keep it at my normal 1.82, I mean, what is the point? It's just like, it's not necessary. I don't know if you realize that, but the thicker you sew, the longer you want that stitch length to be. So I am turning my stitch length up to 3. That's the only thing I'm changing. Other than that, I've got my regular straight piecing stitch on. I am lining up with that lovely line I sewed. Oh, I don't have a foot pedal either. Okay, this is going to be fun. We're turning it down slow, so if Becky messes up. Again, this is why I need Brent, because I could just blame him if it messed up. But he's not here. Some people will backstitch at the beginning and the end. Not a bad idea. I didn't right then, and typically I do just to anchor those edges. But I'm nervous right now. I'm nervous because I'm using a button and not a foot pedal. So I'm going extra slow, guys, because I'm not used to sewing without a foot pedal. This is really pushing my limits. Now see how I was getting a little hill there. That's why I oversized them. I want these to be nice and straight. I'm also double checking as I take those clips off. I'm checking the edges to make sure they're nice and straight. We'll speed it up just a little bit because I can. And sew over my hand because I forget to touch the button. How many of you sew without a foot pedal? I know Brenda has mastered it, but man, I'm just old-fashioned like that, I guess. I don't like having to lift my hands up like I am right now. I like having both hands on my fabric. I might put my foot pedal on before we go too much further, but we'll see. I'm getting there. Getting near the end. When I do get near the end, I am going to backstitch just for, insurance sake. We're almost there, guys. I know I'm super slow, but... And forward a few, because I don't like to cut my threads there. I like them at the end. Okay, now, I forgot to get my iron out, so I'm going to get that. But look at what we have now. Let's just go ahead and press this open. I'm going to get the iron and show you. Oh, I was off a little bit there. Yeah, and I was too. See this? I opened this up and I went, oh, I see my line, and I don't want to. So I said, how come? Can you all see that? That's not something I like. And when I look, I go, well, that looks okay. But if I peel this back, see what happened in the very get-go? That's off. It slid over. So, Bev, you and the glue, that wouldn't have happened if I had used glue. They would have stayed right where they were supposed to. So, yeah, I would, and I'm going to, because this is my quilt. I'm going to take that out, guys. Eddie's making fun of me right now, but I didn't backstitch here either, so guess what? It's very easy to take this out. And yeah, I know a lot of you wouldn't bother. I know that. I know you'd be like, no, that's good enough. But it isn't for me. So I'm going to come back into the machine and I'm going to redo this part a little bit better. And yes, this is something that if I had used glue, it would be a non-issue. What happens is once you start taking your clips off, things move. We're going to try one more time. I promise I only try one more time. Because otherwise Eddie's going to be mad at me. So we're going to go forward. We're going to go backwards. Hold it in nice. And we're going to go forward. Then I'm going to take my clip out. Not too early. Oh my gosh. I didn't realize that. I was holding down that green button. Did you notice what happens when you hold down that green button? It goes one stitch at a time. I didn't know that. Did you guys know that? Yeah, Janice, this is driving me crazy, to be honest with you. Ann doesn't use... Oh, okay, well, Ann, one up on you. But watch what happens. I'm pressing the green down. Oh, yeah, should make a layer out of me. Look how slow it goes when you don't release it. That's something I just learned. That's good when you're headed into a corner. Oh, but then it speeds up. Okay, I'm going to backstitch right there and cut her off. Okay, phew. Whatever this is good enough. Because I said we have to move on. So I'll get my thing out. Well, it's much better. Much, much better. So now when I pull this over, I have, you can start to see the sashing, right? Let's look at what's going to happen on the back when I pull this over. Going to have the sashing, right? Isn't that cool? It is. Now what do we do? Well, we have this beautiful, I'm going to leave this one tucked the back side out of the way for now. I'm going to take this front, and in the real world, maybe I have a wooden presser that can get me through. Yes, I do. In the real world, I would really take my iron out and I would press this really good so that I have nice, tight seam. And I'm probably going to get it out before I go much further. Now what I do is I take my second one, right? Now remember, we already squared it up. We already marked it off. It's been pressed nice and flat. I'm going to take him and I'm going to put him face down against my strip. Yes, I am. And what else am I going to do? I'm going to make sure that my tops line up, because as we go onto this quilt, we'll be joining rows. See how I want my tops to line up that way? I want my bottoms to line up. If you did a good job squaring these up, they will. Now what I'm going to stitch through is just this strip on the front and this quilt sandwich of the second block. Do y'all see? Do y'all see the logic? It's pretty cool. I'm just making, this is real, so I'm being finicky. So now I'm only catching one of those strips, not both of them. And if you can see, I'm going down at the top and the bottom first, because that's critical for me as I go on and put rows together. I don't want my rows two different sizes. What's not so critical is this stuff, because that's extra. And then when I come in the middle, I'm just going to take it and I'm going to go right about there. Like that. And guess what? We're going back to the sewing machine. And some of you may choose to sew in this direction. Ooh, actually, I'm glad I turned that over. Do you see how that wasn't? I need more clips. Or, as Bev would say, glue. Bev's a converter. If I put glue, now again, this is my seam allowance. So I'm just spreading my glue, And then with this seam line glue, I don't have to heat set it. With my Elmer's glue, I do. With this, I do not. So you know what, Bev? This is a perfect example of, let's just glue. I'll make a believer out of all of you. And this washes out, but again, I'm putting it in the seam allowance, so it's never going to be seen. And it is more accurate. If you haven't tried this, I suggest you do. It is, especially with your bindings, it is a game changer. We got some, right, Ed, in the store? You buy one pen, you can get tons of refills. I think I have a pen for every station, though, because that's how much I love them. Let's just get rid of these threads. I hate extra threads. He said, they do have a cap, unfortunately. I wish they'd get these clicking method. Okay, so that looks really good. That looks really good. I'm going to town. Doing the exact same thing. I'm coming in. Oh, no. Now I don't have a 1/2-inch marker right now, guys. So I can use the laser on my machine to give me my 1/2-inch, or I can draw my 1/2-inch, or I can use the 1/2-inch marker on my sewing bed. I'll tell you what I would do. At home, I have laser. I'm going to do my laser. If I'm not there with a fancy laser guide, I am going to get my fancy ruler out. Don't be shy. A lot of people go, what do you mean you're drawing your seam allowance? I'm telling you, it's nothing to be ashamed of. It gives you such nice results. You got to sew some straight lines here, or it's going to look wonky when you're done. And I know a lot of you won't bother, and you'll just use your 1/2-inch seam allowance. But for today's show, I drew a line. That's how fast it is to draw it. And again, I'm going to backstitch. If all goes well, yeah, I backstitch. Maybe the next time I'll show you the laser guides in case you have. I know a lot of you out there have luminaires, so you do have the laser guides, but maybe you already know how to use them too. I love them, especially when I go do the top stitching that we're going to do, which is strictly decorative. The laser guides. If I didn't have laser guides, I definitely would be drawing. Or maybe using your 1/4-inch foot. But I'll be honest, I don't like using the 1/4-inch foot if I'm not along an edge. I think it bends my foot. So if I'm not 1/4-inch and along an edge, I'm tending to use my lasers. And if I don't have lasers, the old-fashioned way is to draw the line. We're nearing the end here, peeps. Here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes, here it comes. Off to the edge, please. Thank you. Okay. Ooh, Becky, you should always close your cutter. All right. So now I've sewed that. So now here's where it gets really cool, guys. You're going to start to go, oh, that makes so much sense. Also remind, Jean's right, the seam is different in case you have to go away for a second. I just find it much more accurate. But now let's look at our front, guys. Look at our front. Is that magical? And if you look inside here, before I go any further, you see how my batting is butting up? Some people don't have batting in there yet. We do because of how we built this quilt. I don't have to place any batting strips in this seam. There, it's already there. It's already there, and they're butting up perfectly because we took the time to do it. Now you say, what about the back? Well, let's take a look at the back. What's happening on the back? See, this is why I needed to do a good job ironing. I'm going to have to break out the iron id. Because you can tell, I can tell that they're not totally ironed on the front. Because what should happen on the back is I should see that those two seams butting up, just like that. Hang on, I'm going to get that iron out and heat it up, because it will heat up faster, and then I can show you exactly. Instead of just saying, believe me, it's going to line up. Excuse me, as I dive down into the abyss of the... Okay. 1, 2 is enough. Okay, we'll do that. What's happening here is the front, the 2.5 inches we did on the front, are making that strip come together nicely, right? Now, if for some reason they were overlapping a tad, because, you know, we're just dealing with fabric, you can trim a little bit off. The secret, though, is you want them to butt up. So if after I iron it, if it's a little too tight here, this is too tight. You can feel it with your fingers that it's overlapping. You can, at this point, I would just open it up, put my ruler on here, and slice a little something off. Maybe I cut it a little crooked. I don't know. But now we're going to iron the front as soon as my little guy is hot. What's going to happen next is this goes over the back like that. We know we've got this line right here. Is that showing up, Ed? That stitching line represents the ditch on the front of my quilt. So if I take this and I fold over a scant 1/2 inch and I line it up with that line of, we're going to do this for real, but if I line that up, guess what I got when I go to the front? If I stitch in the ditch on the front, I've now caught this strip on the back. Right? So let's go and iron it and see if I get a better job lining it up. And then the other stitches I did on it is strictly decorative. All of a sudden my blocks are joined. So I'm going to try, I don't want to iron the crease in this wrong. This is what I get for not ironing correctly. I should have ironed this strip up real good. And, by the way, I wouldn't be shy about spraying this either with my trusty little Niagara or Best Press, whatever. You don't need anything too fancy. You could even use water at this point, but you all know how I feel. If you're going to get wet, you might as well get it stiff. That's what I say. All right, so that's there. And now, I'm carefully, because I don't want to muck this back up, I'm going to carefully, what I'm doing is I'm pressing, I am really pressing this open. What you don't want is what a lot of people end up with, even in regular quilting, is those seams aren't opened up the way they should be, and then they see little buckles. You know what I'm talking about, those little folds. We don't want any folds. You don't want any folds in sashing even if you haven't quilted it, guys. This is just a good way to iron blocks together when you have sashing, period. Okay, now let's turn it over. Isn't that pretty, guys? It's pretty and everything. Oh, see what I was talking about? Well, it's still a little tight right here. I don't know if that's showing up on the camera. See how that's a little tight? It's good down here. It's a little tight right here. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take this up. I'm going to put my trusty little ruler on it. Oh, boy, I got a lot of stuff going on today. Let's just see. Oh, I have to go this way, don't I? Let's just see. I'm not cutting yet, guys. I'm just checking. Well, that's not your 1/2 inch mark, Beck. Be important to have the 1/2 inch mark. Well, yeah, see it's a little fat there. It's so minuscule though, but I don't want to shove anything in there. I really don't. I don't want lumps and bumps. I'd rather have it be a little bit narrower, that's the word I want, than too wide. Make sure you're not cutting through the other quilt block when you do this. See that little smidgen I took off? Let's see if that's enough. And make sure you cover it. Close that up. Oh yeah, see? That's all it took. That's all it took. Isn't that cool? All right, so now for the magic part. Well, another magic part. Yes, I'm pressing again. I like everything nice and flat. That's not really necessary, but I do it. Now, but this is. Remember I told you I don't want any little folds anywhere? I am pressing this. I'm pulling this puppy. But remember, I treated my fabric and I cut it nice and straight. I am not causing distortion when I do this. Another reason why you want to pre-treat. Well, it isn't really pre-treat, it's treat. Because if you weren't on the straighter grain and you were doing what I was doing right here, all of a sudden it would look crooked.
They're ironing on the cutting board.
Oh, well, good thing I have batting in. I'm ironing on the cutting board, and he's right. But I have batting in, so I got made out on that one. Thank you, Ed. All right. So now I've got this done. And now, ideally you say, oh, you can fold over the 1/2 inch like this. I do not press it, though. This is a guide at this point. It's sort of like when we do binding. Remember how I said don't press your binding? This I'm folding this over to the stitching line, and I'm just finger pressing it. I am not ironing it. I just want to give it a little bit of memory to go with. That allows me to make changes if I have to when I flip it over. Okay? Now watch what happens when I flip it over. My goal, well, that was really bad. I did it twice what I should have. My goal is to get this so that it lines up with that, just a stitch or two over. Is that going to show, Ed, when I do that? Can you guys see what I'm shooting for? That's this line. Let me get a pencil here or something. This line represents on the front a ditch, a stitch. So if I get this so it just barely goes over this, when I flip it over and I sew in the ditch, I've now anchored the back as well. Does that make sense? Ed, does that make sense?
I think so.
Okay, so I folded over way more than I was supposed to because, you know, sometimes I don't know what 1/2 inch looks like. I folded over like 3/4 of an inch, that's how. So I'm giving a new memory line. But again, I'm just eyeballing that 1/2 inch. Now let me tell you, there are some gadgets out there that can help you with this. One of them that a lot of people love is this Nancy Zimmerman double-sided basting tape. This basting tape is exactly 1/2 inch wide. It also comes in 1/4 inch, and I use the 1/4 inch, well, actually like the Stitch and Light, whatever that's called. Seam Light comes in 1/4 inch, and that comes in 1/2 inch. And I really like those tapes. They don't come on my needle. I really like those. You can take this, and because it's 1/2 inch, if I laid this on here and then I turned it over, I would stick it down. So, and these work well, but I am a fan of my glue. And this is a case where I literally don't do it all at once because this stuff does dry. Boy, is this a well-loved glue stick. I'm going to start in the middle. I am going up near that stitching line, guys. That is a critical piece for me not to move once I get it on there. Some people will pin. I don't like the pinning. I got to be honest with you. I feel like every time I take a pin out, I distort something. So look that's that. Look what I'm doing. Deb, you know this trick, right? Just don't go down the whole thing all at once because you want to press it with your fingers when it's a little ooey and a little gooey. Now, the perk to seam too, light. I got to be honest with you. It stays in there even after you wash it. So if you're off just a tad when you go to sew this back on, it's still going to stay there because you've got a permanent bond in it. So don't be thinking that's not a good alternative for many of you, because it is. I like it for the binding for that very reason. You know how sometimes you're off just one little stitch? Now, if I was off on the whole thing, I wouldn't rely on that product to hold it forever. Going down near the end. I am being extra careful. Trust me, because you're watching me. It does not take me this long at home. I am a nervous wreck. Because Brent's not here. I can't blame Brent if this goes asunder. I'm even gonna, yes, Eddie, I'm ironing on my cutting mat again. I just want to make sure everybody's happy.
Except the mat.
Well, he's happy. There's batting in here. So far, he's not yelling at me. How many times have you guys done that? Let's be honest.
At least twice.
How many times have you ironed on your cutting mat? Let's fess up. And yeah, Bev, right? So I'm just gonna, and I'm telling you, this does not come up my needle, and I feel like it gives me precision. Now, the reason I'm ironing afterwards is not because I have to with this product, but remember, I've created just a memory crease. I don't want that thing moving. Now it's not a memory crease, it's a, oh baby, this is where you're gonna stick down crease. So I'm doing this to make sure my fold is nice and tidy. Because what I can't stand is when I go through all this work and I turn it over and I go, damn, you got a pleat in it. Damn, there's a fold where the fold shouldn't be. That does not go over well with me. So I am forcing a permanent memory. You know, the same memory I told you to get rid of when you first buy your fabric? Yeah, make your own memories. God. All right, looky, looky. Looky, looky, people. You know what we got, right? Now, some of you are lucky and you have a stitch in the ditch for your walking foot. That's the accessory you can buy. Does not come with the machine, so I don't have one here. I still want to use my walking foot, though, people. I'm still dealing with a lot of fabric, so I'm still, how are we doing on time-wise?
It's 12:57.
Ooh, I'm doing okay. I mean, I'm going to get it stuck down. Here's where the magic begins, or ends, I should say. Remember, this side is sewed. This side over here is glued, right? This is where I want to stitch in the ditch on the front. If I stitch in the ditch on the front, let me get this exactly right, without a stitch in the ditch foot. And I'm going to go part way, and I'm going to prove to you it works. If it doesn't work, I'm really going to just tell Eddie to delete this whole show. I ruined my 2436 cutting mat by ironing. Oh! Well, you know what? This isn't even warm right now. So, oh! Okay, here we go. I'm going slow again because that's what I do. I am aiming for the ditch on the front. And when I get partway here, you can also do a check. Well, I can't very easily right now. Sometimes what people like the pins for is they'll put the pin in the ditch from the back just to prove that they're catching it. But, you know, I'm living a little dangerously here. Because
Such a rebel.
I am. I'm a rebel today. I'm a rebel. I'm a rebel without a cause. I have no cause. And I'm sewing without a foot pedal again. I'm doing stitch in the ditch with no foot pedal. I hate taking my hands off my fabric. Plus I'm standing up. Ah, this is nerve-wracking, guys. All for you. All for you guys who want to see how this is done. And now that you do, you're going to be, well, that wasn't so mysterious, Becky. No kidding. That's what I've been telling you. It makes so much sense to me. I don't know why we don't do it on more quilts. Because in all honesty, you don't have to use sashing at all. And I'm sure we'll be showing off a quilt where that isn't the case. Just because I love doing this. Let's see how well we did. Oh, yes, Yeah, baby. Home run. Look at that beautiful stitch. Caught in the ditch. Look at that. Isn't that beautiful? Now, because I like things to be, symmetrical, what I did is I also stitched in this stitch because I just was making it pretty. And then I came in a 1/4 inch, because this is a 1-inch strip. I came in, we don't have to do this all live. This is now stuck together. Oh, and by the way, I would just trim these now, even with my blocks, because I know when I go put this together, there's another sashing strip that's going this way. So now these are done their purpose. We can cut those off. If you look at the sample, you'll see I added one in the middle, 1/2 inch, and then I came out a 1/4 inch on both sides. Those are purely for looks. That's all those are. They don't serve any real purpose. You don't have to put them on there. I kind of like them, and I also like that it helps anchor down all my batting in the seam, so I know there's not going to be any flifty doodles going on. So that, my friends, any questions? Yeah, brave girl. Stitched, quilted as you go. I am gonna add my top stitching because I like it, because it's really pretty. But that's it. They're joined, and they're nice and flat and beautiful. And no, I did not use any batting tape. Some people will tell you, oh, put batting tape in there. First of all, this batting specs us for every 12 inches. You're welcome, Jean. Specs for every 12 inches. This is a 1-inch segment. This batting is not falling apart. This is the batting we sell here at Four Pines that is a 70-30 blend. I'm asking Danny to verify, Dream. And its spec says as long as it's stitched every 12 inches, your batting's going to hold firm. That's how, I love this stuff, and it's not overly expensive at all. What is batting tap? Batting tape. Oh, batting tape. Batting tape, Bev, it's almost like it's a woven.
Isn't it almost like
It's
101?
like strips of 101. It's very similar to strips of 101. It comes in different width strips. And when you're piecing batting together, you put it between, you butt the edges up, you put the tape on, then you iron it down. And it keeps the batting from shifting. However, I have heard tales of that tape coming off during the wash. And then you have a lump in your quilt. So I like to not use the batting tape. I just butt up, and truthfully, I'm stitching so close I wish you could feel it. This is so smooth. It is so smooth. Nobody's going to look at this and say, oh, she quilted it as you go. She used cut up pieces of batting. You won't be able to tell.
I can see from here how flat it is.
It's flat. It's flat. Danny says she can see how flat it is. You're talking about me or the quilt block?
Both.
Okay. There it is. Any questions? Yeah, I know. I love it, Jean. I love it. And again, there's so many different ways of doing this. As we do more quilts, I'm going to show you more different ways as we go. You're going to see me use this same technique when I go put the borders on, which I haven't cut out yet, but I will be. And I will show you when I do the rows to rows, because they have little, they're not really cornerstones, but they sort of are. In between each sashing, there's another little piece of fabric. So I don't want you to go, no, what do I do? Same thing, same thing, same thing. Easy peasy. Are we done now, Ed?
Well, you gotta say
No more questions, guys? Then we're going to sign off for the day. I hope you all have a great day. Get going on those quilt tissue goes. Hey, what am I supposed to say? So excellent and be kind to one another?
Something like that.
Something like that. Just be good people. Be good people.